little lecture on usability. This is the lecture that you will need to go through on Wednesday, so I'll also point those slides for that day too, or not point, post. So for usability, I'm going to give you this definition. It's from Rubin and Chisnell's Handbook of Usability Testing, 2nd edition, which is a very phenomenal text. If you're interested in doing usability design, I highly suggest that you pick up a copy of that book. It gives you step-by-step directions of how to do cheap, affordable, in-depth usability studies. So for definition, it's a product or service is usable when the user can do what he or she wants to do the way that he or she expects to be able to do it without hindrance, hesitation, or questions. So usability terms, we want usefulness, the degree to which the product enables the user to achieve his or her goals. Efficiency, how quick the goal is achieved. Effectiveness, the product behaves as suspected and is easy to use. Learnability, the amount of time it takes to learn a system. Learnability is huge. The first time that you come to a system, it might take you a while to learn things, but once you move from that novice to that expert position, you're not going to have to go back and relearn things, right? You're able to build up that knowledge and do things more quickly and more effectively. So the learnability can be made easier if you remember what I was talking about with the desktop publishing. If you're a novice, the designer can make it into the interface where you can just have a novice buttons, so novices can use the thing, but they're not going to be able to use it as quickly or as efficiently or as effectively or as in-depth as an expert. So satisfaction is the user's perceptions, feelings, and opinions about a product. How does it make them feel? Are they happy with the product? Does it look good? Does it run how they want it to run? It's funny like how much psychology can play into the usability of a product. So you want to keep that in mind when you're designing your manuals. Does it look good? Is it nice? Is it fun? Is it easy to use? The last thing I'm going to touch on here is accessibility. Accessibility is huge. Products should be able to be used by a person with disabilities. This kind of goes into color blindness, screen reading if you are totally blind. I'm kind of trying to touch on more information stuff here because we're dealing with instruction manuals. So just make sure that you have some sort of accessibility built into your product so that people who aren't fully or that are handy capable are able to use the product. So user-centered design. Development starts with the user as the focus, taking into account the abilities and limitations of the underlying technology and the features the company has in mind to offer. So what this should really remind you guys of is rhetorical situation, right? You always want to start with your audience. Who's your audience? What information do they need? What limitations do they have? And what do you want to offer them? So it, of course, is an early focus on users. It's evaluation and measurement of the product usage in regards to those users. And what it really is an iterative design process. So what you want to do is you come up with a prototype, you test that prototype with the users. The users give you some feedback, you go back, you redesign, you bring it back out to the users. They discover more problems with it, you go back, you redesign, etc. So it's a very circular pattern of developing products. I'm going to post a link to this video, or I'll embed this video also with this lecture for Wednesday. It's about Nielsen's 10 usability heuristics. These heuristics are top-notch heuristics to guide whether or not you have a usability product or not. Heuristics are a little bit different from usability testings. Heuristics just give guidelines for products versus doing the actual usability testing is when you test with the actual user. So attributes of organizations that practice user-centered design. So what you do is you have phases, which is normally this is how it goes. You have requirements, so you have a bunch of engineers that get together and they write requirements for the product. They say, this product shall do X, Y, Z. This product shall do F. Like this product shall be able to complete a task in so many minutes. Those types of requirements. The next thing after you write your requirement documents is it goes to development. And in development is where you have designers and engineers working to create the product. And then in development is where you're going to do a lot of iterative user testing. And then once you have done enough user testing cycles and you've fixed enough bugs or you've taken out enough errors, then you'll go to deployment, which is where you send that product out to your audience or to your users. And then all along while this phase is happening, you're usually including some form of user input. They're also going to have a lot of multidisciplinary teams. So you might have somebody that's a tech writer, you might have a novice user on your team, you might have engineers, management, marketing. All these people are going to be working together in order to create the product. Your book, or not your book, I think the usability book I assigned, it says that people are normally, you want concerned and enlightened management. I don't know, that's a little bit of an idealistic statement, but you definitely want to have this learn as you go perspective. You're not going to know everyone, or you're not going to know everything. No one's a genius when you're designing new products, so you need to understand that you're going to make flaws and errors, but you have the chance to go back and fix those. You also want defined usability goals and objectives. So some different user-centered design techniques is ethnographic research. In ethnographic research, what you're going to be doing is you're going to go out into the field, well, what we'd call the field. So you might go to a user's home, and then you start asking them questions about a product. You might observe them from behind while they're using a product, making notes of what they're doing with it. You might also discover any patches or workarounds that they've created to make the product more efficient for them. Additionally, participatory design goes back to having that user input. Sometimes if you're on an interdisciplinary team, they might put a user on there which has the person doing the user who is your user demographic is actually participating in the design while you're creating it. Sometimes you'll do focus group research, which I'm pretty sure if you've seen Mad Men, you're familiar with what this is. Basically, it's kind of that two-way mirror where people are on one side observing a focus group on the other side of the mirror that's giving them feedback about a product. You might conduct surveys, which could be just to gather background information. It could be used to gather feelings about the product. You can do walkthroughs, which walkthroughs are something that we will be doing. So they're kind of like think aloud walkthroughs where people are reading through your manual and they're telling you, okay, I'm reading this, now I'm doing this on the screen, and they're discussing all the different things that are happening while they're completing a task. There's also open and closed card sorting. This helps very well if you're interested in creating categories and hierarchies. So basically what you do is, in an open and closed card sort, is you take, for example, let's talk about a website. So you have a menu on a website and you have a bunch of subpages and you're not sure of where those subpages should go under which menu heading. So what you can do is you can create just note cards with those menu headings that you have, and then you create note cards with the subpages, and then you ask different people to organize those cards under those subheadings for you, and that way they create the categories and where all this information gets organized. So card sorting is really good for organizing information. There's also paper prototyping, which is you can just create a really cheap, cost-effective paper prototype of something. You don't have to put it into 3D modeling. It's just really quick and easy, so you could say, hey, here's a paper prototype of a website. So you just give them like a drawn-out homepage, and you're like, okay. Then you'll give them a task and say, I want you to get from this homepage to a certain form. And in order to click, they just use like a pencil, and they will, you know, highlight or use the pencil to show which menu item they click, and then you give them another paper that shows like what that submenu is and what that looks like. There's also expert and heuristic evaluations, which goes back to Nielsen's 10 heuristics, so be sure to look at those. And then there's also usability testing, which is what we'll do, which you'll also do a think aloud protocol with in order to understand which errors you're making.